Dixon. Dan started as the CFO of Endeavour back in 2007. He's got over 20 years of mining experience, and Endeavour operates 3 high-grade underground mines in Mexico with a growth opportunity expected in the second half of 23, I believe. Yes. Dan, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you, and see if I can get my water to stay. Yeah, as the presentation gets up, I want to thank the Gold Forum, or Denver Gold Group, putting the forum back on. It's good to be out here in person again. I know for me, I've traveled a lot to Mexico in the last year. There's not a lot of Canadians traveling as much to their operations, but I know we're still working through COVID, but hopefully things get a little bit more back to normal over the next year, and we can continue to deliver in the mining space and get these things back going. So our cautionary note, I will be making forward-looking statements. From a bird's eye view, the elevator view, so to speak, of Endeavour, we are in Mexico. We produce 6 million ounces to 7 million ounces of silver equivalent a year through basically 2 operations. We had 3 operations at the beginning of this year. We've closed one of our smaller operations called El Compass. So we are a mid-tier producer, always looking to optimize our assets, looking to reduce costs. We have seen some costs increase in the first half of the year, but ultimately we're going to work to reduce that in the second half of the year. Of course, organic growth. Our company was built through the drill bit. I was made CEO in May from being the CFO for about 13 years. Brad Cook was our CEO, and he remains chairman. He's an exploration geologist. We were, as I say, built through the drill bit, and we're going to continue to do that through my tenure. We continue to make new discoveries at our existing operations, Guanaceví and Bolañitos. We've announced new discoveries at Guanaceví as late as last year, and we're continuing to drill new areas at Bolañitos. So we've been at some of these projects 15, 14 years for those 2, and we continue to add reserves on an annualized basis as we develop, and we add resources through the drill bit to continue our mine lives. We are a silver and gold company. We only produce silver and gold. We have no base metals. We're predominantly silver, 60%. There's ending up being a lot fewer and fewer silver companies as we go. But that's our goal, is to maintain our silver leverage. And ultimately, of course, we're inquisitive and looking to always grow. So the biggest thing for us coming down the pipeline now is Terronera. And we're all in Mexico, Guanaceví, Bolañitos, our Compass mine, we're all in Mexico. We sold another mine called Cubo at the beginning of 2021, but we're bringing in Terronera. And the tagline now for Endeavour is Terronera is going to double our production and cut our cost profile in half. So we produced about 6.5 to 7 million ounces of silver equivalents in 2021. In 2024, when Terronera comes online, we expect that to grow by 6 million silver equivalent ounces and cut our costs in half. So Terronera itself will be basically silver, or the gold will pay for all the silver. Our cash cost will be about 59 cents per silver ounce. ESG, for us, and this has come to the forefront from a corporate standpoint a lot more in the investor community, but we've always operated with what we call corporate integrity. Having a social license in the communities that you operate is mandatory for mining companies, and a lot of Canadian companies do that extremely well. It's just now the investor communities with the ESG is doing through it. We've ramped up now. We produced about 8 million, or for 8 years now, we've produced a sustainability report, and we'll continue that going through. We have great community relations at our existing operations, and ultimately at Terronera, being ready to build from a social standpoint. Here's our 2021 outlook. As I said, we're going to produce about 6 to 7 million silver equivalent ounces this year. Through the first half of the year, we've produced almost 4 million silver equivalent ounces. So we're ahead of plan from a production standpoint. Our cash costs are estimated to be about $7.50 per ounce of silver. So far through the first half of the year, we're trending higher than that. We've been at $10.50. Some of that's a function of what we're seeing from a supply constraint standpoint, inflation, but also royalty costs. Prices are higher than what we planned in our guidance. We have a significant royalty at Guanaceví that we pay. We never paid up front for our El Curso property, which I'll touch on in a bit. And then also seeing increased professional costs across the board. Sustaining capital for the year, we planned $30 million. We had spent $14 million on the first half of the year, so we're on track from a sustaining capital standpoint. Our development budget, we had $9 million to advance Terronera. We just approved another $13 million last week to advance Terronera from now to year end until we go to a formal construction decision. I'll get into that. And our exploration budget across our portfolio of mines and exploration properties in Mexico and Chile is about $10 million. Again, halfway through the year, we're basically on plan with $5 million spent. Our balance sheet, we have a very strong balance sheet at this time. We have about $125 million cash. You can see the growth from Q3 2020 to Q2 2021. Our working capital is about $147 million at the end of Q2. Mine operating cash flow continues to improve, and mine operating earnings obviously continues to improve. We did sell our Kubo asset, as I said at the beginning of the year, for about $20 million to Guanajuato Silver, who's here at the forum. Our Guanaceví mine, we've been here 15 years. It's 80% silver, 20% gold. We do produce a doré from Guanaceví. 60% of our production comes from an area we call El Curso. El Curso we picked up from Mexico conglomerate owned by Carlos Slim, Frisco. They have concessions surrounding our Guanaceví, and we cut a deal here. No upfront capital, but ultimately we pay a significant royalty, sliding royalty costs here. So we are paying about $50 per ton when we mine it, but it's very profitable. It's running about $300, $400 per ton of value. It's a prolific area. We knew it was there. This is the future of Guanaceví for the next 5, 6, 7 years. The Bolañitos mine, that's located in Guanajuato, also in Mexico, 80% gold, 20% silver. We've been in Bolañitos now for 14 years. Ultimately, we have a 2-year reserve life. We've always had a 2-year reserve life. As we develop it, we replace those reserves. We bring resources into reserves, and ultimately through the drill bit, we replace those resources. Bolañitos, again, it's got still upside potential. We continue to explore around it. We announced last year some discoveries, what we call the Metadito vein, that we'll bring into production this year and into next year. So that brings me to Terronera, which everybody's got the questions about, and we're all spending a significant portion of the time. Terronera, we picked up again from a Mexican conglomerate group out of Mexico for an option price of $3 million that we executed back in 2013. Made a discovery there probably within a year and a half, and have significantly grown the asset to where we took it through 3 PFSs and ultimately a feasibility study. It's going to have a 12-year mine life. It's going to be our largest mine, high-grade underground. It's construction ready, so all the permits are in place. We're just waiting to amend some permits. Some municipal permits are required, but stuff that we expect to have in the next 3 to 6 months. But if we want to get into construction today, we can start. And in fact, we have started a little bit of stuff with that $13 million approved through our board. Early engineering, procurement, long lead items, et cetera, et cetera. Our tagline, like I say, is doubles our production and cuts our cost profile in half. So we're going to produce 3.3 million ounces of silver and 33,000 ounces of gold over a 12-year mine life at Terronera, which ultimately turns out to be about 6 million ounces silver equivalent, which is what we do at our existing operations. This vein, the veins run extremely thick, 3.5, 4.5, 5 meters, much thicker than what we have at Guanaceví and Guanajuato. We're going to run a plant at 1,700 tons per day. That 1,700 tons per day is the exact same scope and scale that we do at Guanaceví and Bolañitos. Guanaceví runs 1,200 tons per day. Bolañitos 1,200 tons per day. Historically, Bolañitos used to run 1,600 tons per day. So this is exactly what it is down the runway of what we do. The feasibility study for Terronera using $20 silver, $15.75 gold, has a NAV value of $175 million, IRR of 21%, payback period of 3.5 years. And that's using an initial capex of $175 million. As I say, we have a balance sheet with currently $125 million, $145 million of working capital, $125 million of cash. We are working to put some debt financing in place to be able to fully finance and come with a formal construction decision before the year is out. Cash costs, as I've touched on, 59 cents per ounce of silver using gold as a byproduct, and all-in sustaining cost being $3.24 over the life of the mine. So that puts it in the lowest decile, even lowest quartile. Lowest decile from an all-in sustaining cost standpoint, lowest quartile from a cash cost standpoint amongst our peer group. Again, just the robust economics for the project. You can see there the grades are running 197 silver grams per ton, close to 2.25 grams per ton of gold. So very prolific mine for over the 12 years, but ultimately we will have a higher grade upfront in the mine to improve those economics. You can see on this slide here, 14, our feasibility study using a $24 and $1,800 case. NAV grows to $282 million. IRR is 30%. Payback period falls to 2.5 years. Life of mine cash costs are negative $1.51. So ultimately, that gold pays for even more than the silver. Cash costs on an all-in sustaining cost basis is basically $1 per ounce of silver. Annual free cash flow after tax ends up being $52 million for over the life of the project, $467 million undiscounted. Here's just a quick slide on where we sit amongst the peer group for silver operating mines. The 59 cents on a base case basis puts us at, like I say, in the lowest quartile, and on an all-in sustaining cost there at the bottom of the slide puts us at basically the lowest decile in the operating community. Again, another slide just showing our grades. You can see that from years 1 to 4, we're going to average production of 7.5 million silver equivalents per year, grading at 450 grams per ton. That's going to even out as we get lower into that deposit, into lower grade areas. But ultimately on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see the longitudinal sections and the grade patterns in Terronera and La Luz. Terronera is open at depth and along strike. You can see some of the high-grade areas in the purple there. And La Luz is actually a high-grade gold vein that we're going to bring into production at the upfront end for us. Both are open along strike and along depth. So once we get in and develop, we'll be able to put drill pads in and drill below that. And we fully expect that we're going to be at Terronera longer than the 12-year mine life, more like 15, 20, 25 years when it's all said and done. There is still a significant exploration opportunity here, as I say, that's going to keep us there. About 8 weeks ago, we announced exploration results from San Simon, Fresnillo, Lindero, and the Pedencia veins, which are southeast of Terronera. Very significant grades. Early days yet, more work to be done, but ultimately we can show that we can move into these areas. And last year we picked up those concessions called Los Cuates, also drilled that earlier this year, and we're continuing to drilling that. We're having significant results there that we expect to have out for the end of the year. Again, just showing the community that there is significant exploration potential that remains at Terronera, and that we're going to be able to extend this mine life past the 12 years to 15, 20 years when we're all said and done. We do have a proven strategy, and we think we have a quality project. So obviously the feasibility study gives us a lot more confidence. We've used Wood based out of Denver, Utah, and Vancouver kind of over COVID. We used all their offices. We have an experienced project team. So I was made CEO in May. In September of last year, we brought on a new chief operating officer, Don Gray, who's come out of the experience of building mines in Colombia and Guatemala prior to us. He'll be bringing people along to help with that build and bringing that experience for it. We do have board approval expectations for Q4 of 2021. As I said, we brought a $13 million budget that's been approved to advance early works, and expect a full budget and construction decision for the end of the year when we bring a financing package in place. So this is fully paid for. And of course, responsible development. Our exploration team has done a phenomenal job with the surrounding communities at Terronera, Santiago. We've also, with that, transitioned into our development team, continue to have very good relationships, and it comes down to our social license. Even though that we have all those permits in place, it still matters how we treat that community. Again, it's going to be a large, high-grade mine. It's going to double our production and cut our cost profile in half. We have continue to have exploration upside and robust economics here on the Terronera project. We aren't done with Terronera. We also have Parral. Parral's in Chihuahua. We've grown this asset to about 40 million ounces of silver. It's predominantly silver, 300 grams silver equivalent with a little bit of lead and zinc. Our goal this year is to drill it out, grow it to about 60, 65 million ounces of silver, and then ultimately put it through the economic studies. So hopefully by the end of next year, 2022, we have a study on Parral, and this could be our ultimately our fourth or fifth operation when it's all said and done. It's a long history of mining in this area. There's mines significantly around it. A lot of these concessions have old mines on it, produced about 4 million ounces of silver per year. So it's a prolific district, less permitting that we need it than what we needed at Terronera, and something that we can hopefully add to the portfolio relatively quickly after Terronera. So we do believe we have a sector leading organic growth strategy. Our exploration results at Peral have been relatively good. We delivered on Terronera. We've delivered a great project on Terronera with robust economics. We expect to deliver that for H1 2024 to bring that into production. But we do have other projects behind us. We also have the Paloma project, Aida and Cerro Marques, all in Chile. We have a small footprint there. We drilled out Paloma, looking for some partners on that. Aida, we're working on permits that we should have shortly. It's a silver project in the Bolivian silver belt that ultimately we expect to drill here in October and November. And then Cerro Marques is a significant project, significant scale, copper, gold, porphyry. It's too big for us. We're looking to get boots on the ground for some of the majors to be able to joint venture this project. So again, this company has been built by the drill pit. We've done a phenomenal job, and we continue to have projects in behind it. Quick look at our share structure. We have 170 million shares outstanding. We are listed on New York Stock Exchange, TSX. Currently have a market cap about $800 million. Again, our balance sheet's in very good shape with $125 million cash. And we are one of the sector leadings from a beta standpoint. So as silver moves, we move with it. So if you believe in the price of silver, you should believe in Endeavour Silver. Our analyst coverage through Canada and the United States. And ultimately, before questions, I'll leave some time for questions because I think we get a lot more value out of that. The reasons to why invest in Endeavour. And I think at the end of the day, it's our growth story and what we have there at Terronera. There's not many projects that have been brought to market in the last 3 to 5 years. You can count them on one hand in the silver space. And there's more and more scarcity in silver than we've seen in the past. You see that in the multiples of the silver producing companies. And I think that's going to continue. And we're very inquisitive to try to add to our portfolio and make sure we maintain our silver dominance from a leverage standpoint. So with that, I'll open up with questions. I know there's not a lot of time left, but if there's any from the audience, please.
Might pose one quickly. What's the operating environment in Mexico been like? You know, I think when President AMLO took over, there was a question of whether it was going to be more difficult to get mining concessions. It sounds like you're fully permitted and ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely changed a little bit under AMLO. He obviously leans well to the left, and there's been a lot of rhetoric, especially against Canadian mining companies, and First Majestic comes to mind. And we've been lucky that we are fully permitted at Terronera. We have all our permits, obviously, through our existing operations as well. And we don't really have any tax issues, which is what they've been kind of hammered on. And then there's other Canadian companies that have been dealing with union issues, and we've stayed clear of that. And from a COVID standpoint, Mexico as a country shut down for about a week. But at the end of the day, they had to get on with it. They didn't have the safety nets that we have here in the United States or in Canada. And ultimately, there's a lot of protocols in place, a lot of safety and hygiene protocols in place. Everyone wears masks. Everyone's got protocols, and we do too, to get onto the site. We do see COVID at the gates, but generally we've turned it back. So we've been operating relatively well since we came back into operations after there was a government shutdown in 2020 for 2 months with the uncertainty around COVID. But since then, and as of last year, we beat our guidance, and this year we're on track to kind of exceed our guidance again. So operating has been fine. I think it's the bigger macro level that people get concerned about. There's 3 years, but we've been able to manage quite well.
Great. There it is.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks everyone.